Welcome to the Green Talk. This is Mizraim Matam, your host. Thank you for tuning in. And today we have a very special guest. Not much introduction needed. Jay Ward. Jay, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Having you in the show. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being this journey. Appreciate it.
Oh, I very much appreciate the invitation, man. I've heard the show, several guests on the show, and I was like, man, I don't know if I can keep up with a lot of the really high quality guests you've had, but I'll try. So
No. Thank you, man. Thank you. Really appreciate it. And so, Jay, let's just jump into the conversation because we have a lot of things to talk. And I would like to start with. I know you are well known in the industry, but I would like to start with introduction and just kind of asking you to bring me back to the early years and the college, working long days, long hours, which probably you're
yeah,
still doing it, working long days, but you know what I mean? So, and
yeah.
what really brings you into the green industry back in the years?
Yeah. I got my start because I was working in an office, and maybe it was just too many times watching the movie Office Space, but like the fluorescent lights and having to generate these reports and all this stuff just felt so oppressive to me. I was like, I need to be moving. I want to be outside. I want to be physical. And I initially, my first answer to that was, let me try a moving company. And day two, I showed up, and this guy was paying guys cash under the table. It was really shady. And day two, I show up, and he's like, "Oh, you've got a valid driver's license. You can drive the moving truck." I was like, "This is not for me. This is not. I'm not going to be responsible for breaking, all these people's stuff." And I wasn't sure the guy even had insurance, so I was like, "Forget that." And someone that I knew owned like a mow, blow, and go kind of landscaping company, and I did that for a summer and wasn't like crazy about it. The following summer, in between semesters of college, I had another contact of mine who ran a full service. And that summer, I did everything. I did decking, I did edging and mulching, I did hardscaping, I did brush clearance. I mean, I did everything, and it was a blast. And I was like irrigation repair. We re-poured the same exposed aggregate patio twice because we screwed it up the first time. Like it was all kinds of fun. And I so that was like my first thing. But the area I grew up in was really um pushed to go into college. It was very much like you have to go and get a degree, and landscaping was like the thing that happened if you like didn't go to school. Right.
Right, right.
Green industry was like something went sideways with your life. You don't want to end up that guy. But I ended up working for a palm tree farm. I went to school in Florida. I worked part-time for a palm tree farm while I was down there. And when the bottom fell out of the economy in 2008, 2009, I found myself working for Scott's Lawn Service at the time before True Green bought them out. I sold lawn care for them door to door for 6 years in total. In the middle
Wow.
there, I spent a year doing B2B advertising, came back to the green industry. And then I ended up working for a full service landscape company. I started as their only inside salesperson. When I left, I was running all the marketing, and I had built a team of inside salespeople and sales admins that I was supervising. Went to a digital marketing agency for a little while and remembered how much I prefer the green industry. I'll just say that. And then I ended up with Single Ops for a period of time. They didn't have anybody that had industry experience, and so I ended up creating a lot of resources for them, for owners. I did stuff like best practice guides on sales, marketing, recruiting and retention, something that I'm very passionate about, change management, all that kind of stuff. And I hosted their podcast for a number of years. I don't know how I missed you as a guest. You should have been on that show 100%. But when I gave that up, I was doing work most recently for a large design build firm, and I was the director of sales there. They really needed help tracking data and workflow and kind of building out processes. And right now, in this moment, I'm open to a few spots for consulting. So if anyone's listening to this, feel free to, I'm sure you'll have something in the show notes, check it out. But yeah, that's my journey so far. It's been 20 something years, and it's fun.
That's awesome, man. That's a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge through all these years. And you know, talking about the time and the field, doing all this work, there is any lessons that you carry until now? Something that you learned back then that now you're using it and this new phase of your career?
I think a couple of things. One, I think you develop some of the absolute best relationships in our industry. People who I met years ago are still some of the people I can pick up the phone today and call when I need to work through something or I have a question or whatever. I think relationships in this industry are really different. We're a lot more collaborative than other industries I've worked in. And so one is, don't go burning a bridge. I mean, like if you need to burn a bridge for various reasons, go ahead and do it. But like it's a really small industry. It's
Yeah,
been, 700,000 businesses, and somehow a lot of us know each other, right? So
yeah,
like, um, the other thing is, I think one of the things that I love and I'm drawn to about the industry is, we just really reward hustle. Like you can be entry level in this industry, work hard, ask a ton of questions, be coachable, and you will succeed very quickly. It's truly like a merit based type system in our industry. And so I think both the companies that we work for and our customers kind of reward those mindsets. And so I think, and that translates from the field all the way through, office, admin support, whatever it is. You can really um, make an impact, and I think that's one of the things I love about it.
yeah. Definitely, I should agree with that. With those statements, it seems like it's a large industry, but at the same time, it's kind of small. Like you say, you know each other, and
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you're in the west, east, middle, south, north. You
Yep.
ended up knowing all the people, and that's great. I believe
Yeah.
that's a good thing.
I agree.
There were at some point in your career where you feel like the green industry is not just a job, but more like a calling. Like this is where
Mm.
I really feel this is my path. There were some point in your career where you have that feeling.
Yeah, I think, and that's a great question. I think for me, it's probably when I realized I was really like enjoying it. Do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like you do it for a while, and you're like, a lot of us backed into the industry almost by accident. Like it's something that just paid the bills while we were thinking about something else. And I just had this moment, and I don't know, I couldn't point to it on the calendar. I can't be like, it was April 25th, whatever.
yeah,
Um, but like I just realized I was really enjoying it, and I think when that changed, I tried to change industries a couple of times because I thought maybe just I enjoyed the people I worked with, but not the work itself. But no, it turns out for me, it's got to be both. I think that was the turning point. Was like, I'd go try something else, and that wasn't satisfying. It wasn't fulfilling in the same way, and it was like, all right, now I know where I'm supposed to kind of stay.
yeah. Awesome, good. And so for many of us, and I will say this for me personally, and I'm pretty sure for you in some way also, working in this industry teach us lessons about be humble, working hard,
Yeah,
do something with or do the work with purpose. Right? Do you
yeah,
feel that
yeah,
way as well?
absolutely. I think, as I said, I think that this industry has taught me that it really rewards hard work. Blisters and calluses are badges of honor in our industry. We
Yeah.
tend to enjoy working hard, and I think the other thing it's that I've learned about all of that is I'm not as smart as I thought I was. Like, I think that especially the older I get, the more I'm very aware of what I don't know.
That is called
And
maturity. Get it mature.
yeah, yeah, there's a lot of people in this industry who have a diploma from the School of Hard Knocks, man. They lived it, they've made those mistakes. Those lessons are hard won. And I didn't have those when I started out. I have some now, but it's really taught me to appreciate and respect those that do have them. It's like, oh, okay, well, If they've already blazed that trail, I don't have to to
Yeah.
have the same battle scars if I'll just pay attention. And so, it's but yeah, I think it's taught me a lot about hard work and you called it maturity, but humility, however you want to phrase it. Yeah, I think the industry is just it's one of the things I love about it. Just you if you're just willing, if you're a
Yeah.
will, this isn't a blip on the map. It's not a side quest while I'm working on something else. If you're willing to like really embrace it, it's just not like no other space I've worked in. So
Yeah, yeah, and it seems like none of those realize those moments until later in the career, right? The early years is like it's a lot of work, working in the summer and the heat or cold, whatever you are. But then it's
yeah,
until you kind of pass all that, and then you start realizing all the lessons that the industry and the work is teaching us ourselves. That's great,
absolutely.
man. So I would like to move on and break down a little bit your background. You pass for say that.
Yeah.
So you work at marketing and also sales, right?
Mhm.
So being in that portion of the industry, how that those roles help you to be better at communication, communicate, external clients, internal clients, and make sure both portions of the equation connect in a good way.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think a couple of things. When you're talking about communicating with customers, one of the things as a salesperson that you have to learn, and I think Mark Bradley actually kind of just like posted about this today on LinkedIn. It was spot on. Your customers aren't really interested in you per se because they probably called you and they probably called three other people, right? Like it's not like no one picks up the phone and calls me and goes, "I have to have that guy." Mostly they're interested in solving their own problems.
Mhm.
So, I think we just um, tend to try and make ourselves the hero of the story. Sometimes we're not the hero of the story; they're the hero of the story. So, um, another thing that I learned about communication, and this applies to customers, this applies to internal teams, whatever. People invent their own stories in a vacuum, right? Like, if there's a long gap in communication, people invent their stories. So let's say I worked in a company one time where we had a huge backlog every spring in maintenance. Like people waiting until July to get their spring edging and mulching done. It was crazy. And they would say sometimes we'd call them and say, "Hey, we'll be out next week to do that." And they'll say, "Oh, I had someone else do it 2 weeks ago. I assumed you guys didn't want to do it because it had been so long since I signed the contract for it, signed the proposal for it." And and your teams will do this too, right? If they come to you and they have a problem and they say, "Hey, I'm really having a challenge with this situation," and you say, "Okay, let me work on that for you," and then you never follow up, it goes weeks before you've communicated with them, they're going to invent the idea that maybe you don't care.
Yeah.
So I think just a proactive touch, even if you don't have the answer, to say, "Hey, I haven't forgotten about your need. I don't have the answer yet. You're still not on the schedule, or I still don't have that new piece of equipment you need, or whatever, whether it's an external, internal team member, whatever, like just a proactive touch is really powerful." Um,
And no, that's great, man. That's a
yeah,
great approach to communication. And something that I'm seeing, I facing and seeing across the industry is the change, the break the old mentality, the I always do it this way, right? The old way.
yeah.
When becomes communication with clients and also internal teams, have you faced that challenge trying to change that old mentality of the way I always do things, and now it's a different way to do it, or I don't want to say a better way, but a different way to do things?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we get, and I think I was just having this conversation with our mutual friend Pierre this morning. I think sometimes it's a bandwidth issue. It really comes down to people get busy and they don't feel like they have the capacity to learn a new way to do something. They don't feel like they have the time to do something a different way. And so we default into the things that we're comfortable with. I worked in a company when I joined them, it was an 8-figure company, pretty big for our industry. And they were doing no documentation of customer interactions when I started. None. They were
Wow.
they were like like a phone call. Someone called in to pay a bill. We weren't documenting that at all. And I got really kind of relentless and persistent about like, no, I'm going to document it all. But then when someone would call in and they'd say, oh, they need to talk to somebody. I'd say, who was the last person they spoke to? And they, oh, I don't know. Well, why isn't it documented? Just those little things. I think, yeah, I've been in that situation where they had an old way of doing it. Um, I think what makes a difference is not so much when people are instinctively resistant to something different when you tell them what they've been doing is wrong, right? So, like I said to you, and I said, man, Mizraim, the way you're doing the podcast is totally wrong. You're going to be like, who are you? Like how many good episodes have I put out? But if someone comes to you and said, hey, have you tried doing it this way? Here's why I have done it this way in the past. That's a totally different conversation, right? So what I did in that circumstance was I said, I started documenting everything myself. I just said, fine, if no one else is going to do it, I'm going to do it because the stuff that I'm going to own when it comes to communication is important to me. And as over the course of the first year and a half I worked there, other people began to find my notes. And then they could say, oh, I know who this call is supposed to go to. Oh, I know that, they told me they were going to pay their bill 2 weeks late. I don't have to put them on credit hold. They already communicated with us, like whatever the situation was, they began to see the value in having that documentation. That's when it became a thing. So I think that's the important thing is if you're trying to change the old way, the current way of doing something in the company you're working in, going to them and telling them, hey, you're doing this wrong is not the right way to approach it. I think what you have to do is you have to prove the concept and prove the value and help them understand your point of view on why that might be a more efficient way, an improved way of working before you can expect them to get excited about it.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to highlight just your comment. I think that that's gold for the industry. Basically, it's not what we say; it is the way you say it, or the approach that you have to the situation,
Absolutely.
and that's very important. Sometimes we don't see the person behind the role, and
Yes.
that's important.
Oh
That's
yeah.
important. Yeah,
100%.
yeah. Now, let's move into your current role or your current work right now. You
Sure.
mentioned it early. You have now a consultation firm
Uh,
out there in the
yeah. I mean,
industry.
I have
You
some
wanna
capacity. Go ahead.
yeah. No, no, go ahead. You want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. I mean, for me, I have experience that I think there's a lot of companies out there that are smaller firms that could probably benefit from when it comes to sales processes, when it comes to setting up your marketing, when it comes to um, employee recruiting and retention, as I mentioned, is something I'm really passionate about. Change management. There's a lot of folks still using pencil and paper, and
Yeah.
we dealt with that a lot at Single Ops as a CRM. Trying to transition people. Times it worked, times it didn't. And so taking some of those lessons and being able to help people, without having to necessarily bring someone on staff. So I do have a little bit of capacity for that. If you're curious about it, lawncare-consulting.com. You can check out my website. But yeah, I want to. Some of the best days in my life, Mr. Have been working in this industry. Not just like best days at work, like best days. Some
Hmm.
of, some of the most fun times, some of the most amazing things I've seen and done have been working in this industry. And I want other people to have that experience. I want other people to like have the same passion for the industry that I have. And I think the only way we do that is by getting better at talking about it, getting better at recruiting for it, building healthier companies so we can hire more people and bring them into those experiences that I've been able to have. And so that's that's the driver for me.
No, that's awesome. And this new phase of your career, and then everything you did in the past, what's the most common thing that do you believe that owners or managers get wrong about adapting new systems? When you talk about doing something new, what you think in their mind is like holding them to do that change?
Well, I think two things. Um, no, maybe it's one thing. Either they don't see the need for change. It's a couple things. Either they don't see the need for change, and their teams do, and that creates conflict, right? Their
Hmm.
teams are telling them I need something different, and they're not listening because they don't see the need for it. They don't work in it day to day. That's one potential pitfall. Another is where they see the need for change as the owner. They've got the 30,000-foot view. They're seeing everything working in the business, but maybe their operations manager, who someone is a key person, or their sales manager or whatever, they don't see the need, right? So then they've made a unilateral decision about an organizational change or change to a commission structure or new software, whatever it is. Um, they've made a unilateral decision without involving their team in the decision process. And in both of those scenarios, you're just really set up to fail. I think the biggest takeaway, if you're listening to this and you need to make some kind of a change to your business, if you see the need for change and other people don't, first you have to help them see the need. Okay. Um, oh my gosh, I'm gonna forget the guy's name. I'll go back and look it up. I've written about him. There's a guy. There's the guy who was it was like called America's Super Cop. He was the chief of police for the New York City Transit Authority, Boston, LA, and twice he was the overall police commissioner for New York City. So two different terms as this. And what he did oftentimes when people didn't see the problem is he helped them to see the problem. So like when he was the chief of police in Boston, he put in a request for new vehicles. And the city controller said, no, you can't have the vehicles you requested. You can have these smaller vehicles that are a fraction of the size. And rather than arguing and picking a fight with the city controller, what he did is he went and rented one of these small vehicles, put on his full gear belt with all of his, like his gun and his baton and everything like that,
Uh-huh.
shoved the passenger seat all the way forward. Because if you're using these as patrol cars, you've got to leave the back seat open because you don't have a liability. If you got to have plenty of room in the back for the suspect. And he drove this city controller over every pothole he could find for 4 hours
Wow.
in the city of Boston. He just drove the
Crazy.
guy around and showed him these vehicles are not functional. You need to figure out a way to do that in your business. When you're seeing the roadblock, when you're seeing the bottleneck and your team doesn't, you have to bring them into understanding of the problem rather than just making a unilateral decision. Because again, that unilateral decision making is telling them the way you were doing it was wrong. And instead of bringing them into understanding of why it's important and making them a part of the solution.
Yeah, definitely. That's a key component of a change. I really
Yeah.
love that. Really love that. And also, do you feel like once the company do all that and those process, and now they finally implementing something new, there should also have a way to track the progress. Do you feel
Oh,
that's important?
absolutely. Look, so there's actually a framework for change management. There's a great article from the Harvard Business Review by a guy named John Cotter. It's called "Why Transformation Efforts Fail." Go read it. It's a fabulous read. It'll take you 20 minutes, 30 minutes. But he outlines an 8-step process for this, and this is what I've basically taken and added my own experience to for green industry companies. One of those steps is once you've decided on the change, you have to engineer on purpose short-term wins. along the roadmap towards implementing that change. So what that means, let's say it's a software implementation, right? The first time everyone's logged in and is using, like maybe it's just a login, maybe it's that simple. Maybe the first time everyone sends a proposal, or your sales team sends a proposal through that and it's accepted, you throw a party. You hand out gift cards, whatever it is, you have to find little like milestones along the way. And on purpose, this is when we're gonna celebrate, and this is how we're gonna celebrate, because that keeps the team's energy high for those changes. And yeah, you absolutely need to track it, but just as important is you need to reward the
Or
change in behavior that's associated with it.
yeah, definitely, definitely. That's a great advice. And this, I will say, gonna help us to lead or to go into the next point of conversation, which is the culture, leadership, and retention.
Mm.
Uh, uh, you say early you have experience on recruiting people and creating this culture within the organization. How companies, Jay, can attract new talent to the industry, or slash hold people that is actually working, and how they can retain people in the industry. There is many people don't want to work in the green industry anymore.
Yeah. If you're listening to this and you're an owner, you're a C-suite, you're even a manager, even a like you lead a crew and you're listening to this, there's a cultural anthropologist, or excuse me, an organizational anthropologist. Again, the Harvard Business Review has a podcast called IdeaCast, and he is a corporate anthropologist, and so like he studied um, like tribes in like the bush in Africa for like 20 years, and then he moved into this role where like a corporation hired him to study their company. And he defined culture this way. He said culture develops anytime there are two people together,
Hmm.
right?
Great.
You have to be, whether you realize it or not, there's a reason. So one of the companies I worked in, right? Some crews take 25 minutes to get out the door. Some crews are out before start time. Why is that? That is down to the crew leader. That crew leader is creating culture within his crew or her crew that says, this is what we value, this is what we prioritize, this is how we get out the door. If you're listening to this and you lead people in any capacity in your organization, you are responsible. Like, it is your job to be responsible for that culture of the people that you lead. Um, and I think too, if you are not in a management, not in a leadership position, you can still impact the culture. Even if you don't lead other people, how you show up, the energy you bring, the attitude you have, that all impacts the culture. So I just think you have to be very aware. You have to be the relentless steward of what things define our culture. And anything that deviates from that, you can't tolerate, in my opinion.
No, definitely. And talking about managers and crew leaders, I would like to ask if it's possible that you can give us at least three habits that people in the field can do to help to create this culture and
Mm,
with the crews, with the teams. Three habits that either production managers, crew leaders, field managers, all these different titles in the industry, but bottom line, all of them are there in the ground, boots on the ground.
yeah.
So three habits that they can have to help to create this culture with the teams.
I think the first and most important, and this is at any leadership level, at any organization in the world, I think, truly, if you are in a position where you delegate tasks to someone else, your sole job, your primary job, is to eliminate roadblocks to people accomplishing those tasks. So if you are a crew leader and you designate tasks, right? And someone says to you, hey, I know I'm supposed to like run the wheelbarrow full of mulch out here and start spreading mulch. I've got a flat tire. And you don't fix that flat tire. You have immediately disadvantaged them, and you're hurting your own culture, because your job is to solve their problems so that they can execute.
Mm-hmm.
If you're a sales leader and someone says, you know, I'm really having trouble with the value and how to talk about it, and how to listen and ask good questions, and you're not doing coaching ride-alongs with them where you empower them or where they see you demonstrate it or whatever, you're setting them up to fail. So I think the
Mm-hmm.
first and most important thing is you have to be, and that's how you build trust with your teams. That's how you build culture with your teams. You have to be not only reactively when they come to you with a problem, but looking down the road and saying, "Oh, I see a roadblock coming up. Let me get that out of the way before they even get there." Right? That's your whole job, is to eliminate their roadblocks to doing their job. I think that's the first thing. The second thing I think you can do is they can see you leading up. They can see you if you're not the senior leader. Let's say you're a crew leader, you're a middle manager, production manager, whatever. They need to see you, and you don't schedule a time to do this. Don't make it corny, but you need to have this attitude organically, where you go to people you report to and you say, "What can I take off your plate?
Mm-hmm.
How can I help you? Tell me what you're struggling with in terms of meeting the organization's goals, meeting our quarterly goals or our annual goals. What can I help be working on now that's going to help us next quarter? What can I be working on now that's going to help us in 6 months?" And when they see you taking that proactive approach, they're going to come into your office. You're working on something. They go, "Why are you working on that? That's not your job." "Oh, because I went and asked the VP if I could help with this." It shows initiative. You're more likely to get promoted, but also it builds that mentality in your crews that they're thinking more holistically about the organization. They're not just in their own lane.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that's a second thing. And third, and this is probably unpopular. Um, I know it wasn't fun when I was doing it, and I've done it in the past, but like, your attitude and your impact as a manager absolutely affects your team. So I think this is really challenging when you've been a peer with someone and then you get promoted, right? Like salespeople, we do this to salespeople all the time in the green industry. They're a really good seller. And so we promote them into management. Well, now suddenly they're missing out on the inside jokes because they're not on the same level. And, they still want to try and maintain those friendships. But what happens is, something comes down from upper management that you don't agree with, you can't go and gripe about it to those people anymore. Like, you're not on a peer level with them anymore. Your job is to shield them as much as possible from the crap that's rolling downhill. And so by doing that, you'll build a healthier culture. You've got to find a way. Maybe it's, venting to a spouse. Maybe you have an industry peer in your market that works in a different company that you can vent to. Maybe you go to counseling. I don't know what it is. But like, you've got to, in my mind, you've got to be the buffer. Crap can't roll totally downhill. If you don't create some kind of like a little log jam where some of it stops with you and you're just constantly dumping it on them, morale is going to tank. So you've
Yeah.
got to figure out what that buffer looks like and how you can run interference for your team, keep their morale high, but also execute on the demands that are being piled upon you.
Awesome. That's awesome, man. So we can say pretty much the what I can do for you mentality. Be able
Yeah.
to help crews, to help the people, head the teams, and I'm curious. Everything you have mentioned is great, and I agree with that 100%. Um, but I'm curious how a manager, uh, you know, can balance accountability and
Mm.
empathy.
I think the easiest way to do that is to set really, really crystal clear expectations, in my opinion. So, like,
Yep.
okay, here's the expectation, and make sure maybe it's written, maybe it's discussed, maybe you've got a visual representation of like, here's the stages we need to get to. Everybody learns differently. You have to make sure that understanding happened with your direct reports,
Hmm.
right? Like, you can't just talk about it once. Because how often do we do this? You've had this happen to you, I'm sure, in the industry. You know, someone sets a goal for you. Here's your annual goals. You forget what they are a week later.
Hmm.
Your supervisor doesn't remember them until they walk in 5 minutes before your annual review, and then they're looking at them and going, "Oh, how do I score him on this?" Right? Setting those expectations really crystal clear, making sure that understanding has happened, revisiting them. Don't wait until the end of the quarter. Don't wait until the end of the year to ask them about those goals. Like, it's on you as a manager. You should be checking in on those midpoint, right? If you're doing quarterly goals, you need to be having a touch with them at 6 weeks. Like, where are we? Are we tracking? Are we not tracking? You need to be proactively asking, what are the roadblocks?
Hmm.
If you're behind on this goal, like, why? What can I do to support you? Right. And so I think when you've done everything you can to set the expectation very clearly and to give them all the tools they need to do their job, then the accountability becomes a lot easier, because then there's agreement from your direct report, right, where they can say, yep, you gave me everything I needed. Yep. You communicated that expectation very clearly. Okay, well, now there's the accountability, right?
Hmm.
And I think it's something, I think Brené Brown, I keep quoting her for crediting her with this, but I think it's actually her that said it. It's clarity is kindness,
True.
right? So when you're clear, that is empathy. You're being empathetic. Like, I want to know what's expected of me in a role, right?
Yeah.
Um, Even with I just picked up a consulting client this week, and I called him before I generated the contract, and I said, "Hey, I want to make sure we're on the same page. Like, is this what you were looking for?" Even though we sat and talked about it for an hour before I put this in paper, like, is this what you actually wanted? And he was like, yeah, you've got the scope right on. Cool. I'll get these documents over to you.
Hmm.
If that communication is not happening, I think you're in trouble. But it really allows you to be empathetic, because you've communicated to them in a way that they feel empowered and supported, and all of that stuff. But then you can also hold them accountable, because, okay, you understood everything, you had all the tools you needed. Where was the shortfall?
Yeah.
Now let's talk accountability. I think if you're not doing those things, that's when you're going to run into problems with the balance.
Yeah. Definitely amazing. And I think we cover pretty much the fundamentals of the present of where we are as an industry. I
Mm,
think we are in a very uh I don't want to use the word delicate, but we are in a point where either we can make the industry better and great and amazing with all the technology, all the people that growing up into the industry and becoming, people like you and Peer and all these great fellas in the industry, and or we can just say, eh, is what it is. So, but I feel like we are on the right path. So, talking about the future, Jay, where with the technology and everything, where you see the industry in a decade from now, 5, 10 years from now, and your point of view.
yeah. Um, I would say this. There's a lot of people, and I'll be honest, I was a late adopter myself. So I'll just put that out there. AI is here and it's not going anywhere. Your
Hmm.
customers are going to be using it more and more. You should be using it more and more. Your teams should be using it. You should be providing them access to training on how to use it responsibly. Look,
That's important. How to use it responsible.
absolutely. But
Yeah.
look, you're not going to go back to sending out proposals by snail mail, right?
Hmm.
You're going to email them because that's the tool that you've been given. That's more efficient. You're not going to go back to digging, French drain trench by hand when you've got a ditch witch. Like,
Hmm.
it's a tool that you've been given, and you're going to use it because it helps you work more efficiently. And I think it's the same way. It's a tool that can and should be leveraged to help you work smarter, faster, more efficiently. Um, I think, yeah, training people on the responsible use of it. Um, you should train your teams on how to use it. it should be, if you're using it for customer emails or you're, writing your content for your website or whatever, AI should be a starting point, not a copy and paste, right? Use it to help you organize your thoughts. Don't use it to do all of your writing for you. Use it to give you a starting point and then go through and edit it and add your own voice to it and your, the way you would normally communicate with your customers, whatever it is. But yeah, that's, I think, what's next. And I think the other thing too, I think you're right. We are at a critical point when it comes to teams and workforce. Um, there's a lot of focus in the US right now. If you're not following Andrew Brown on LinkedIn, go follow Andrew Brown and bring back the trades. There's a lot of focus, even among Gen Z. A lot of people are returning to the trades. A lot of kids are skipping school. And I say kids, they're in their 20s or adults. I'm just old. They're skipping university and they're going to trade school and they're becoming a journeyman, apprentice electricians right out of high school. They're going to be making 80, 90 grand by the time they're 20. Mm-hmm. We're bad at capturing that. Like, there is a desire among this generation to return to those trades, and we have not kept up the messaging, and we have not raised the bar professionally where we're seen as skilled labor on par with a carpenter or a plumber. Like, and that's on us. True. So we are at a critical point, I think.
Yeah. Hopefully,
over the next 10 years, it's going to go either way. That answer your question. Yeah. Over the next 10 years, it's going to go either way.
Yeah, depends on the people leading, right?
We're going to rise to the moment, or we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, and so there is things that are excited about it, technology and all this potential, but and I would like to have like an honest answer from here. What worries you the most about the industry and the future?
The same two answers in my AI and workforce. I think because people have taken AI as a shortcut rather than as a tool to the final product. The potential is there for it to really ruin creative thinking, communications. Look, you can use generative AI to generate a design, like an actual landscape designer, and they're not awful.
No, they're not.
You should be using, they're not great, but they're not awful. You should be using it as a starting point. Like, you can use it to save time. Hey, you know what? You sat down and done a deep dive with the customer on their design preferences. You know that they love an English garden style design. Great. You get some photos, load them into an AI, and use that as a starting point. And then you need to say, okay, this is, it had these colors in it, but they told me they hate red. So let's get those flowers out, whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. So that's, I think if people are using it as a shortcut and we get lazy with it, that's something that I worry about. And again, workforce, it is something I worry about. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about helping spread the message about what a great industry it is, but also about helping companies do it better. I think we miss a lot. And there's some easy fixes. Some of it is like, you could sit down and make some tweaks to your company in the way you recruit and retain. You can make those tweaks and have it, in a week, make significant impact on your ability to recruit really good workforce, really good talent, and keep them long term. It's just a matter of putting in the work to do it. And it's off season. It's November, almost December. Start doing that work now, and you'll have a easier time recruiting for the spring.
Yeah. What do you think is now that you're saying about the workforce, which I agree with you, is a concern, especially nowadays in the country. But how do you feel like a company or companies need to change like specific points, right? Reality, because we can talk about culture and all that, and that's great. Don't get me wrong, that's important. But people live on reality, pays bills, need to get food to the table and whatnot. Yeah. So how has a company we can make this more attractive for current and potential new employees, like a specific points, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Two things, I think. Couple things I should say right away. One, the way we write our job descriptions, like if you're posting on Indeed or ZipRecruiter or whatever, and your job descriptions say, oh, you must be able to work in all weather conditions, must have a valid driver's license, must be able to lift 50 pounds. And that's like really, how many of you read like that? You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
There's nothing in that job description that speaks about purpose, that speaks about enjoying the job, that speaks to the type of person that wants to work outside. Like let's just get better at writing job descriptions. First of all, like that's low hanging fruit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's create career pathways. Let's be really intentional with looking at our organization and saying, okay, if we hire an entry level mower, what objectively, what things do they need to have in terms of skill set, hard skills and soft skills? What things do they need to have in order to become a supervisor? And then, or a crew leader rather, and then a supervisor, and then production manager, and creating that like pathway. And I think it does two things for you. One, it helps you attract people who are ambitious. People, when they can see how to navigate the organization and get ahead, you get people that have drive.
Mm-hmm.
And two, if you're an owner or a manager and you're sick of compensation conversations where someone walks into your office and say, I need to make $1 more an hour, I need to make $2 more an hour. Those conversations are tough if you don't have this outlined. If you have this outlined and defined really clearly, then guess what? That conversation has just become very simple for you. Because someone walks into your office and says, I need to make $1 more an hour. You say, great, let's look at the career path. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll show you how to make $1 more. Here's the skills you need to get so I can pay you more.
That's great. That's a
I
great
mean,
way to
how
put
how
it.
how
Great way to
simple
put it.
is that? Yeah,
Yeah.
if you start doing those things right now, you will make a difference. And the third thing I think is we just really stink at talking about the industry overall. When you're interviewing somebody, yes, you need to tell them about your company. You need to tell them about your core values. Talk about why you love the industry. Talk about what it is that you love, what gets you up in the morning, why you're excited to come to work. And if you're not, you need to have somebody that is doing your interviews
Mm-hmm.
because the human mind is wired for stories. We are 20 times more likely to remember a fact in a story. Did you know that?
Yeah. No. Yeah.
So
It's
like, why
true.
are we not telling stories?
Yeah.
Why are you talking about, oh, you need to be able to lift 50 pounds? Why are you not saying, hey, you know what we did for the Jones family down the street? You know that house you drive past on the way here? Like, we created this outdoor space for them. That's amazing. And for the last 15 years, their kids have grown up there. They've had graduation parties there. They've had birthdays there. Their family has this central point that's a core part of their identity as a family because of the work that we did.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we not selling that to potential candidates? Why are we telling them you got to be able to lift 50 pounds and work 100-degree heat? No one wants to do that.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to be a part of creating something that is meaningful to other people. So like,
Yeah.
let's just change the way we talk. Those things right there, those three things would transform your recruiting efforts.
They're great, man. That's a great point. Just an idea, sharing a internal success, like someone in the company starting in a being a maintenance crew and now probably a CRM or a branch manager or something like that. It's just like
Have them do
showing
your interviews.
that career. Yeah, yeah, definitely. No, that's great, man. That's pure gold. Thank you so much for
Thank
those
you.
advices, Jay. That's great. And before we wrap up this conversation, I would like to bring to the table the release of your new book. We saw in the social media last week a post on LinkedIn about a release of a book that you just published. It. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. It's called the Green Talent Playbook. It's an ebook right now. I'm working on I had someone ask me for a print version, and I was like, I don't have the cover artwork done. I can't put a print version out yet. I'm working on that. But yeah, it's called the Green Talent Playbook, and it is all about how to recruit and retain the best talent in your market. And those three things I just talked about, like those are things that I talk about in the book. There are
Good.
other things. It has practical suggestions for how to um, strategies you can implement that will make a difference in your recruiting and retention efforts. And yes, it covers things like pay and benefits. It covers things like culture, but it covers those things I just talked about too, like creating a career pathway. It covers being really thoughtful about the marketing and how you're writing those job descriptions. It covers candidate experience. Like what's the gap between when someone applies to you and when you're actually getting back to them? And if it's going to be a week or 2 weeks in between that initial contact and an actual interview, what are you doing in the meantime to keep them engaged so that they don't go just take a job somewhere else and work for the construction site down the street, right? So like all of those things that you can begin to implement are in that book. It's not super long. It's like, I don't know what is it? It's like 60 pages, something like that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not huge, but I think it was a labor of love. A lot of it's come from my career, but I think it's stuff that you can do that will make a tangible difference on the bottom line, and most of it you can implement immediately. So
Yeah, it's a great book. I already went to the whole thing. Very easy to read. Straight to the point. That's what I like. I really
nobody
like
has time for the fluff, man. Like
I really like the conclusion, the summary of each chapter of in the book. That's great because summarize the whole thing and give you exactly like the takeaway, the main idea. That's great. I also have several notes on my personal notebook about those things. So it's a great book. So
I appreciate it. Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah, you can find it in Amazon. And so
Yeah.
for the listeners, we have 10 copies. If you're interested, this is going
Ah,
to be sponsored by the Green Talk. So you reach out to me, and I will make sure you get your copy of the book of Jay. It's a great book. And so Jay, just to finalize our conversation, if our listeners want to take like one or two things from these conversations, what those things will be.
oh man.
Two
I think
highlights.
I
Everything was
think
good, but two
uh,
two main things.
two great things. Okay. One, it offends me deeply that I think we work. I'm really convinced of this. I think we work in the most fun, the best industry, and we have the potential to make some of the biggest impact on the planet, literally on the planet, in our industry. And it offends me deeply that we're losing talent to. And not that plumbers aren't important, not that concrete workers aren't important. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we have at least as much, if not more, to offer than a lot
Mhm.
of those fields, and we're losing good, skilled, people that want to work hard every day to these other industries, just because we're not great at talking about it. We're not great at some of these recruiting tactics. We're not great at creating those career pathways. So if you're going to take nothing else from this, figure out a way to do those things more effectively and help our industry grow, because you love it as much as I do. You wouldn't be working in it if you didn't. So like let's fix that. And the second thing I would just say, and this is more of a side note, something I'm still learning a ton about because I don't pretend to be an expert in it in any way. But learn to use AI for the tool that it is. Learn what its boundaries are. Learn what information you can share with it and what you shouldn't. There's a sales leader that I follow on LinkedIn. Her name's Casey Calkins. I actually attended like a LinkedIn Live, like a webinar or something like that she did about how to use AI. And she did a great job explaining how you can feed it information about your job and your role and your context and communicate with it directly. Because when you feed it that information, the outputs become a lot better. So I would say learn how to interact with it in a way that the outputs are actually effective for you, and then use those as a starting point. Don't get lazy and take the shortcuts. I think those are the two things I would say.
Awesome, awesome. That's great. Really, really great information, great advices, and most important, thank you for sharing all your knowledge and your experience on life and in the industry. And where people can find Jay on media or for your consultation firm.
Yeah.
You want to
So
share that?
you can find me on LinkedIn. Just look up Jay Worth. It'll say I prefer to be followed. Just send me a connection request. That's fine. That's a quirk with LinkedIn as a creator, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, or you can go to lawn care, one word, dash consulting.com, or just Jay at lawncare consulting.com. That's fine.
Awesome. So I'm gonna make sure all this information is posted on the when this episode goes live, so that way people can start reaching out to you. And then remember, if you listen to this episode, we have 10 copies of the Jay's new book. Just reach out
Thank you
to
so
me,
much.
and then I want to make sure it gets to you all. Thank you, Jay, for being here today. Fantastic conversation. I really enjoyed. It's always a pleasure to have a talk with you, either on this podcast or a text message, a conversation.
Yeah.
Either way, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Um,
much for having me. I appreciate it.
and to our listeners, thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. I really hope that you find it beneficial, helpful information for you and your career and your company. And if you like it, just don't forget to subscribe and share. And we'll see you until the next time. This is the Green Talk Podcast.